Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 288 to 290 based on novel. So let's start. Even though Founding Emperor was his old ancestor, Qin Mu had truly got to know him during these few days, and in just these few days, he was able to see Founding Emperor's character. He would risk his life to save a person he had met for a month, a person who kept bickering with him, let alone the subordinates that had followed him for 20,000 years. Let alone those people of Founding Emperor era. Such a person wouldn't hide in carefree village and live a carefree life. This was his nature. There was no logic, no trickery, and no benefits. It was his nature. The reason why Founding Emperor was loved by his people was because of such a nature. The charm of such a person was the reason he could become Founding Emperor. If you didn't hide in carefree village, in that case, you. Qin Mu was solemn. He used the creation technique to heal himself. The pressure from that ancient goddess apparition had still injured him. Even though the paths, skills, and divine art of this era were exceptionally rough, the difference in power wasn't something divine arts could make up for. The half-gods in the jade pool flooded towards them, and there were more and more of them. Founding Emperor frowned. There were simply too many half-gods. He carried the injured Qin Mu, and it was already good enough for Qin Mu to be able to safeguard his life. He truly had no hands to deal with these half-gods. "You can just put me on your back," Qin Mu said weakly. Founding Emperor carried him on his back. Qin Mu's hands had already recovered, so he could grab onto his shoulders. Founding Emperor's hands were free. The speed which he executed his divine arts was extremely fast, and with a flip of his hands, countless small divine arts came flying out. To him, these half-gods were covered in flaws, and as long as there were flaws, he could easily kill them. Yet more and more half-gods came flooding over. They were in the sky, on the sea, under the sea, to his left and right, they were everywhere. Founding Emperor never cultivated 3 heads and 6 arms before, so he was also unable to make ends meet. "Lend me your sword." Founding Emperor's forehead was full of sweat as he found it harder and harder to advance. Qin Mu had already replaced more than half of his bones, and was currently growing new ones. When he heard his words, he asked, "How many swords do you use?" "Just one is enough." Qin Mu's heart stirred, and the carefree sword came flying out of his Dao Tai sack. It landed in Founding Emperor's hand. Founding Emperor held the sword in his hand and was slightly stunned. He praised, "This sword of yours is remarkable, it's like a part of my body in my hand, it moves according to how I will it." Great sword, great sword. I would also want to refine such a divine sword in the future." He wielded the sword and moved. The carefree sword gave off a clear shrill in his hands. The sword seemed to be excited. It seemed to be trembling and crying. Even Qin Mu had never executed the power of the carefree sword, and yet now, the carefree sword was exploding forth with stronger and stronger power in Founding Emperor's hand. Founding Emperor's sword skills were extremely exquisite, and he was also a person who had entered the path with the sword. The power of the carefree sword increased furiously, and the sword lights moved unhindered through the air. They were like light and lightning. In an instant, it was as if night had fallen on the jade pool, and the sword lights were like snow-white light tearing apart the darkness. In the sky, in the sea, on the sea, blood sprayed out like flowers blooming. With a sword in hand, no one could stop Founding Emperor. Qin Mu looked at this sight and was captivated. The carefree sword was Founding Emperor's sword to begin with, and he could only use the sharpness of this sword to kill his opponents. However, in Founding Emperor's hands, it was as if the sword had awakened. With the sword in hand, Founding Emperor was magnificent. Suddenly, a world-shaking explosion rang out. Qin Mu looked back and saw Nyo Sanduo shattering the apparition of that goddess. The old bull leaped and landed in front of Founding Emperor in the next instant. With a loud roar, he gave off a vibration like a huge bell and churned the sea water. Ancient gods got blown away by the hurricane he raised from his roar. The old bull shrunk his body, and he had a worried expression. We have created quite big trouble. Those ancient gods are flying over. I can't handle so many of them, I definitely can't. Qin Mu let out a shaky breath and said, we still have a place to go. Don't move, let me cast my spell. Both of them stopped moving. The upper half of Qin Mu's body had already recovered. He instantly executed his vital qi, and countless runes swirled around them. The runes crossed one another and began to swirl faster and faster. Far away, from the celestial palaces, ancient gods were currently hurrying over. Great Sun Sovereign flapped his wings and had the fastest speed. He shouted from afar, you again. Golden Commander Nyo Ben. You wreaked havoc in the celestial heavens earlier, and you still aren't satisfied that His Majesty has given you an official position. Let's see how you clean up your mess this time. God execution stage still hasn't had a drink of blood, so you shall be the first. He moved like flickering light and passing shadows as he attacked quickly. The sky was filled with fire, yet at this moment, light flashed as the teleportation divine art burst forth. Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and Nyo Sanduo vanished without a trace. Great Sun Sovereign grabbed emptiness and hurriedly flapped his wings up from the sea surface. His wings covered 100 miles of land above the sea, and his eyes shot out two beams of white light to search the surroundings for traces of Qin Mu and the rest. Another ancient god came rushing over and shouted, Star Sovereign, where have those rebels gone? Those three men had a kind of secret technique and escaped. Great Sun Sovereign said, let the Star Sovereigns of Heavenly Cycle Stars Division form an inescapable net. Get them to cover the Jade Pool so they have no place to run. The stars in the sky originally couldn't be seen, yet they suddenly became radiant now. Countless stars became larger and larger until they formed a Milky Way. Stars shone in the Milky Way, and the gods executed all kinds of techniques. The rays in the sky were like rain, and they warped and weaved in the sky, sealing the Jade Pool. On those stars, majestic gods stretched their heads forward, and their faces were high up and ancient-looking. Gazes fell from the sky and searched around. They searched for a long time to no avail, and Great Sun Sovereign was also out of ideas. Where are heavenly hearing and earthly sight generals? These three people are extremely daring and behave unscrupulously. No matter where they run to, they definitely won't be able to hide from them. After a moment, an ancient god came to report. Heavenly hearing and earthly sight generals have gone to investigate and search for the murderer that killed Celestial Venerable Yu under His Majesty's orders. They have already searched their way down to the lower bound. Great Sun Sovereign stared with his eyes wide open. They searched their way down to the lower bound. Instead of searching the Jade Pool, what have these two fellows searched their way down to the lower realm for? Who is good enough to assassinate Celestial Venerable Yu in the lower bound? Other than half-gods who have the ability to, could it be half-gods? He suddenly shut up and gave two coughs. Golden Commander Nyo Ben, wreaking havoc in the Jade Pool twice, plotting to murder Celestial Venerable How. I have to report this to Celestial Emperor. I'll go to Numinous Sky Hall first, wait here for me and continue to search. You have to dig that guy out. He left in a hurry. And at this moment, light flashed as Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and Nyo Sanduo appeared in a huge hall with extraordinary and imposing style. Qin Mu coughed repeatedly and hurriedly suppressed his cough in fear of alarming others. His face turned beet red from stifling himself. Where is this place? The old bull and Founding Emperor moved into a defensive stance and looked around cautiously. This hall was completely in vermilion red, the pillars, the floor, the walls, the ceiling, everything was red. Even the heavy curtains and screens were red. Vermilion birds were carved on the walls, and there were also all kinds of marvelous vermilion bird markings on the ground. Even the screens and curtains were embroidered with vermilion birds soaring in the sky. There were also sights of vermilion birds eating demon bugs and fighting divine dragons. This is Vermilion Bird Palace. Qin Mu let out a shaky breath. This is where Zhu Qi stays. We know her, so we can hide over here. The old bull was at ease. He said with a smile, that Zhu Qi, who has the same name as South deity Zhu Qi. That lady is born beautiful, but how daring of her to even use the name of South deity. She's really not scared of dying early. Founding Emperor had a weird expression and stared at a mural. He was speechless for a long time. He suddenly asked, "Is this woman in the mural Zhu Qi?" The old bull walked forward, and he indeed saw the woman named Zhu Qi in the mural. He said with a smile, "That's her, what a daring woman." Founding Emperor had an even weirder expression and reminded Senior Niu Ben, for her to attend the banquet with Earth Count and Heaven Duke, her position should be no lower than them. The old bull looked at the mural, and it was the picture of a banquet. Earth Count and Heaven Duke were both there, and they were seated in front. That woman named Zhu Qi was actually sitting beside as well. What you mean is, the old bull probed. Founding Emperor sighed. She is South deity. We have barged into South deity's palace, we are walking right into a trap. And this place is still. He looked past the screen, and behind the screen was a vermilion red jade couch. The jade couch had the shape of a nest, and it was blazing with sacred fire. Veins popped out on Founding Emperor's forehead, and he muttered, "This is still South deity's chamber. I think we can think of how to die." The old bull shuddered and looked at Qin Mu helplessly. You have a way to deal with this, am I right? You always have a way. Qin Mu was about to say something when he heard voices coming from outside. Zhu Qi's voice drifted into their ears, and she was laughing. The celestial heavens meeting this time sure is full of twists and turns. This meeting was to determine the name of the celestial heavens, but in reality, it was just those old fellows squabbling for their own benefits. Earth Count and Heaven Duke are full of courage, and aren't willing to give out the benefits of Yudu and Xuandu. The heads of the half-gods are also squabbling for more benefits. As for the name of the celestial heavens, it was just a minor matter. Goddess, you are in the celestial heavens, so you don't know how bustling the jade pool was. Goddess, the jade pool was almost destroyed from the chaos. First, Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin fought, and Niu Ben wreaked havoc on the jade pool. Then, Celestial Venerable Yu got assassinated, and came back to life to fight with the half-gods, and Celestial Venerable Hao. The apparition of Celestial Empress's younger sister shone down, and got shattered by Golden Commander Niu Ben. It was actually so lively. I shouldn't have gone to the Celestial Heavens meeting, I should have stayed here for the show. It's even livelier now, all of the gods from heavenly cycle stars have run out. These voices gradually came closer, and they were talking about the matters in the Jade Pool meeting. Zhu Qi suddenly said, "I'm a little tired, I'll be taking a rest." Dismissed. Understood. The maids fell back. Footsteps rang out, and a woman in crimson-colored clothes walked into the chamber and chuckled. "How daring, to dare to hide in my chambers, do you really think I have no way of seizing you? Big sister." Qin Mu hobbled out and changed his face. He changed back into his original face and bowed. "Little brother has come to seek refuge, may big sister please take me in." Zhu Qi was astonished and cried out, "You are the new Celestial Venerable Mu. That's not right, you are clearly the little brother I met on the Celestial River." Why did you have Celestial Venerable Yu's face just now? Founding Emperor looked at Qin Mu and was slightly stunned. Qin Mu's face now wasn't Mu Qing's face. It was another younger and more childish-looking face. His face seemed slightly familiar. Founding Emperor was puzzled. He looks a little like me. Qin Mu revealed his true appearance and said with a bitter tone, Celestial Venerable Yu is dead. The murderers are Celestial Venerable Hao and Yin Chaojin. To take revenge for him, I have transformed into Celestial Venerable Yu's appearance. And now, I've offended Celestial Venerable Hao's mother, so I have no choice but to seek refuge at Big Sister's place. Zhu Qiu suddenly chuckled, and flames flowed around her body. She said with a smile, You have offended that little slut, you are dead. You are all going to die. However, you don't have to be afraid, she won't dare to come over here. You can just hide here for a few days. I'll send all of you down to the lower bound when things die down. She suddenly became excited and giggled. Celestial Venerable Hao's mother is Celestial Empress's younger sister. You guys don't know about Celestial Venerable Hao's background, right? Celestial Empress and her sister are twins, both of them look the same. When Celestial Emperor married the older sister, he wanted to marry the younger sister too, but Celestial Empress wasn't having any of it. Come, guess, what do you think happened next? Founding Emperor had a weird expression and thought to himself, this South deity is different from what I imagined. Why is she so interested in Celestial Emperor's private affairs? Qin Mu was still treating his injuries and asked curiously, Big Sister, what happened next? Founding Emperor had an even weirder expression. This Mu Qing is also very curious. The old bull was also stretching his ears, and it was obvious that he was also very curious. Afterwards, when Celestial Venerable Yu opened up the spirit embryo divine treasure, and allowed the people of the world to be able to cultivate, Celestial Emperor said that the descendants of ancient gods couldn't cultivate, so he was afraid the descendants of ancient gods would be bullied by the humans in the future. He thought of an idea to create a half-god and half-human, letting him find a path for the half-gods. This half-god and half-human came to be Celestial Venerable Hao. Zhu Qiu smiled and said, and the one that gave birth to this half-god was the sister of Celestial Empress. Come, guess, who do you think Celestial Venerable Hao's father is? Qin Mu's gaze flickered, and he hurried her. Big Sister, tell me quickly, the suspense is killing me. Zhu Qiu's voice was light and fast as she giggled. Celestial Emperor went to reincarnate as a human, and finally had his wish of making love with his beauty. Qin Mu and the old bull stared with their eyes wide open. Founding Emperor also gave a look of disbelief, and the three of them were speechless. Zhu Qiu saw their expression and was very satisfied. After this matter got blown up, Celestial Empress was very unhappy, and she created quite a ruckus. Celestial Emperor had to give up on his human body and return to the celestial heavens. Celestial Empress created another ruckus. Many people know about this matter in the celestial heavens, but no one said anything. Afterward, when Celestial Venerable Hao rose to power, he was indeed remarkable. However, Celestial Empress treated Celestial Venerable Yu very well. Can you guess the reason behind this? The old bull immediately said, Celestial Empress wanted to take revenge on Celestial Emperor, so she slept with Celestial Venerable Yu. Founding Emperor and Qin Mu coughed, and their faces turned red. There wasn't a need to go so far. She wanted to support Celestial Venerable Yu, and beat down on her sister and Celestial Emperor's son. Zhu Qiu gave some thought and became curious. Does Celestial Empress have that kind of thought though? Maybe she really did sleep with Celestial Venerable Yu, we can't say for sure. That's right. Why does Celestial Venerable Hao want to kill Celestial Venerable Yu? Could it be that Celestial Emperor realized Celestial Empress cheated, and got Celestial Venerable Hao to do his work? Qin Mu couldn't resist breaking her train of thought. Big Sister, It was Celestial Emperor's sister that used her magic power to cover the slow-winding pavilion, making Celestial Venerable Yu unable to escape, or even call for help. Zhu Qiu's eyes lit up. Discord between sisters. Vying for affection. Killing one to warn the rest. What great drama. Qin Mu blinked his eyes and thought to himself, this sister's thoughts seem to be slightly different from mine. I feel that the reason Celestial Venerable Hao wanted to get rid of Celestial Venerable Yu was that his reputation was becoming too great. Only by getting rid of Celestial Venerable Yu could he become the leader of the half-gods and the humans. When the half-gods and the humans develop in the future, he will have hope of aspiring to the throne. Zhu Qiu obviously didn't think that way. She was still excited over the concubines of Celestial Emperor fighting each other, and it was completely different from what Qin Mu and the rest were thinking. Founding Emperor's expression dimmed. Celestial Venerable Yu was a genius of an era. It's a pity for him to suffer just like this. Whether or not Celestial Emperor partook in this, we don't know. Zhu Qiu's earlier excitement was kept under control, and she said indifferently, if the son of Celestial Emperor couldn't be compared to a human, wouldn't that be telling the people of the world that the bloodline of ancient gods is inferior to an ordinary human? Qin Mu and Founding Emperor's heart trembled violently, and they were dumbfounded. Zhu Qiu wiped the solemn expression off her face and said with a smile, good brother, just stay here at Big Sister's place first. I shall go out and take a look at the show. The little slut must be creating quite a ruckus now. Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open. Zhu Qiu was obviously wishing for the whole world to be in chaos, as she quickly rushed out. This big sister is even more excited than me, the person involved in all this. Qin Mu shook his head and said to Founding Emperor, was what Sister Qiu said earlier true? Did Celestial Emperor really incite Celestial Venerable Hao? Founding Emperor shook his head. I've never seen Celestial Emperor before, so I don't know his character, and can't make a good deduction. However, there is this possibility. If what South Deity said is true, Celestial Emperor is playing with fire. Celestial Venerable Hao's ambition is extremely huge, and when the half-gods and all of the races after the beginning of heaven develop, his position wouldn't be secure anymore. Qin Mu frowned. The old bull jumped in shock and hurriedly said, Celestial Emperor has such remarkable abilities, and is even the birth father of Celestial Venerable Hao. Would Celestial Venerable Hao have that kind of ambition? Founding Emperor said, ever since the ancient times, when the Emperor lives too long, the Crown Prince would find it harder to sit still and would want the Emperor to die sooner. Since Celestial Emperor won't age and die, the only way for Celestial Venerable Hao to take the throne is to make a move on Celestial Emperor. Furthermore, after the different races and the half-gods rise in power, they would request for more benefits. Celestial Venerable Hao will have no choice but to make a move then. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly, and he said, I was thinking, Celestial Venerable Yu told us the first thing was to let all races be able to cultivate and be equal to gods. What could be the second thing he wanted to say? Founding Emperor looked over, and when they looked at each other in the eyes, they knew what each other was thinking. Founding Emperor said, if Celestial Venerable Yu didn't die, it might be possible. Now that Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, the other Celestial Venerables wouldn't be his match. Celestial Venerable Hao would be in charge of the power of the half-gods, and he also has quite a number of followers from the different races. Firstly, he has such a big power, and secondly, with his status as the son of Celestial Emperor, no one can match up to him. He would lead one of the heavens in the 3 heavens of Dragon Han, and it would be the strongest one. Qin Mu said, the other Celestial Venerables, none of them will be his match. There's still one more party to the 3 heavens of Dragon Han, so where is this party from? Founding Emperor shook his head. This is probably not what we should be worrying about. The old bull was muddle-headed from listening to them. What are you guys talking about? Aren't you talking about the second thing that Celestial Venerable you wanted to say? Why are the three heavens of Dragon Han dragged into this? Qin Mu explained, the second thing that Celestial Venerable you wanted to say is after imparting the method of immortality, there will be more and more gods from the human race and the other races. They would attract fear, and get beat down sooner or later. He plans to fight for benefits for all the races, and this is the third pole in the three heavens of Dragon Han. The old bull said with a smile, wouldn't it be settled by forming a little celestial heavens? Who is going to form it? Qin Mu was worried. We will be returning to our own era, in just a few days' time, and no one would be staying back. No one can stay back either. Founding Emperor nodded his head. Among the 9 Celestial Venerables, Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, Celestial Venerable Qin, and Celestial Venerable Mu are missing, and the rest of the Celestial Venerables are no match for Celestial Venerable Hao. Furthermore, these few Celestial Venerables are all like scattered sand, it's hard for them to form the third pole. Qin Mu was silent for a moment and said, I have an idea to form the third pole. However, after the three heavens of Dragon Han, exactly which side is the winner? Founding Emperor's heart jumped, and he looked at him. Qin Mu continued to say, was the winner the first pole, ancient gods celestial heavens, or the second pole, half gods celestial heavens, or even the third pole? That extraterritorial celestial heavens that destroyed Crimson Light era, and High Emperor era, which pole is it among the 3 poles? Founding Emperor was silent. Now was the beginning of Dragon Han era. It was the first year of Dragon Han, so the second pole and the third pole had not yet appeared. No one knew which side had achieved the final victory through the incomparably long-lasting years of Dragon Han era, and become the behemoth that rules over all. Just nurse your injuries at ease. Founding Emperor revealed a smile. History naturally has its own path. We aren't people of this era, so we don't have to consider so much. We just need to return to our own era, and face all of it without fear. Qin Mu nodded his head gently, but he thought to himself, however, we have returned to the past and become history. This third pole must be established. After a few days, his injuries healed, and Zhu Qiu had returned to the palace. She talked excitedly to them about what she had seen in the Jade Pool. There is already news leaking out. She said excitedly, Celestial Venerable Hao has fainted, and is still in a coma now. Celestial Emperor is furious, and he has given the order to investigate this case. However, there are no airtight walls in this world. Soon, news spread out that Celestial Venerable Hao murdered Celestial Venerable Yu, and thus Celestial Venerable Yu had come back to life to take revenge on Celestial Venerable Hao. Those divine arts practitioners broke into an uproar. People deduced many schemes, and the news was abuzz. There are all kinds of explanations out there. Qin Mu blinked his eyes and said, in that case, where did the news come from? Zhu Qiu blushed slightly, and she said, I only spoke a little truth. I merely said that Celestial Venerable Yu was taking revenge on Celestial Venerable Hao. Founding Emperor and the old bull were unable to restrain a smile. There was also someone who smeared *T on Celestial Emperor's head, and said it was Celestial Emperor who planned this murder. The rumors spread as if they were true. This wasn't said by me. Zhu Qiu was full of smiles and jumped onto her nest. She sat in her vermilion bird sacred fire and swung her legs happily. But I know who said it. The old bull asked curiously, Big sister, who said it? Qin Mu and Founding Emperor had weird expressions as they took a glance at this bull. Founding Emperor thought to himself, Senior Nyo Ben learns fast. Of course it's Celestial Empress. Zhu Qiu smiled and said, Celestial Empress is also an intelligent person, and naturally knew who laid their hands on Celestial Venerable Yu. The sisters are probably fighting it out in the chambers. However, Celestial Emperor's sister later said it was Celestial Venerable Mu who killed Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Mu had later tried to kill Celestial Venerable Hao, trying to push the blame onto little brother. However, people with a keen eye instantly knew there were many loopholes in her words. Numerous divine arts practitioners are planning to leave the celestial heavens, but the celestial heavens is tightening the security now to search all palaces for Nyoben, Celestial Venerable Qin, and Celestial Venerable Mu, thus forbidding everyone from leaving. Those divine arts practitioners began to quarrel, and so they started fighting with the half-gods. It's truly lively. She walked around excitedly and said, the celestial heavens is in turmoil and a hideous mess. Golden guards even planned to search my vermilion bird palace, and got thrown out by me. How could those brutes barge in Big Sister's celestial palace and my chamber? Qin Mu could totally imagine this female ancient goddess throwing a fit. However, it's about time for you guys to leave. Zhu Qiu suddenly calmed down, and took a look at Qin Mu and the rest. I've heard the news that Celestial Emperor has requested Earth Count to make a move and got him to check the life and death divine treasure of everyone in the world. The three of you have to be found no matter what. Since Celestial Emperor has personally invited him, Earth Count will definitely give him face. You might not know of Earth Count's magic power, but if he wanted to check on all lives, no one can hide from his eyes. Qin Mu, founding emperor, and the old bull were all astonished. Earth Count indeed had this ability. The Earth Count now still didn't know them, so if he found them, he would definitely catch them and bring them to Celestial Emperor. Suddenly, Qin Mu said, when Earth Count makes a move to investigate all lives and all gods in the celestial heavens, that would be the time darkness shrouds the celestial heavens. We have indeed come to the time where we should leave. Founding Emperor and the old bull were puzzled. It was their first time returning to the past, but Qin Mu had already experienced it once. Big Sister, can you invite Celestial Venerable Ling over? Qin Mu said, I still have certain things I want to tell her. This is simple, I'll just get someone to summon her. Zhu Qiu instructed her maids, and after waiting for a long time, the maid announced outside the chamber, Goddess, Celestial Venerable Ling has arrived. Celestial Venerable Ling walked into the hall, and was slightly stunned when she saw Qin Mu and the rest. She hadn't seen Qin Mu's real face before, so she didn't recognize him. However, she recognized Founding Emperor. Celestial Venerable Ling walked up and greeted Zhu Qiu. Nice to meet you, Goddess Zhu Qiu. Zhu Qiu waved her hands and said with a smile, stay here and talk, I'll go out and take a look. Earth Count should be making his move soon. Qin Mu's face changed, and Celestial Venerable Ling looked at him with a dazed look. She cried out, Celestial Venerable Mu. You. Qin Mu said firmly, Sister Ling, we are leaving, thus I want you to witness this and not give up hope. Celestial Venerable Ling's heart was flustered. You are leaving? Where to? What about the human race? Who is going to be the leader? Also, what about Celestial Venerable Yu, he's still in the coffin. Qin Mu revealed a smile and said softly, the world is full of evil, the human race has to be united, and all of the races after the beginning of heaven should also be united. Niu Ben, Qin Kai, and I won't be able to remain in this place, we can only look back at your history. Celestial Venerable Ling was even more helpless and at a loss. Qin Mu couldn't bear to see her like this and asked in a soft voice, are you willing to join Heaven Alliance? Celestial Venerable Ling was slightly stunned. Heaven Alliance. Join Heaven Alliance, attract more capable and righteous people to join as well and form our own power. Qin Mu was about to elaborate, when Zhu Qiu's voice rang out from outside the chamber, Earth Count has made his move. The darkness is about to reach here. Qin Mu walked out of the palace, and Celestial Venerable Ling suddenly shouted loudly, I'm willing to. Qin Mu turned back and revealed a radiant smile. In that case, Sister Ling will be the leader of Heaven Alliance in Dragon Han era. Sister Ling, let us meet again in the future. He walked out of the hall with wide steps and, far away, the darkness came pouring over like a flood, swallowing everything in its path. Qin Mu bowed to the ground to Zhu Qiu. Big sister, little brother is leaving. I will never forget big sister's kindness in taking us in. The darkness poured over and swallowed his figure. Part 289. According to Qin Mu's experience, traveling back to the past through the fog in the surging river only gave a half-day of time. This half-day didn't refer to 12 hours. It wasn't a precise timing, and instead, it was the darkness replacing the light. There was no darkness in the celestial heavens, and it was always bright like daytime. When they come here, no matter how much time passed, it would still be daytime. As long as night didn't arrive, it wouldn't even be a half-day. When Earth Count made a move, that would be different. The darkness of Yudu shrouded the celestial heavens and caused the darkness to descend in an instant, thus achieving the requirements to return to the future. In the darkness, Qin Mu waved at Zhu Qiu and Celestial Venerable Ling. He, Founding Emperor, and the old bull's figures were like pitch-black sand drawing in the flowing darkness, scattering with the wind. Celestial Venerable Ling's mind was blown, and she looked at this sight in a daze. Zhu Qiu also looked like she had seen a ghost. She hurriedly came to where Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and the old bull were and she touched around. However, the three people seemed to vanish into thin air. How strange, how strange. Zhu Qiu was beyond astonished. Waves were raised in Celestial Venerable Ling's heart, and she subconsciously remembered what Qin Mu had told her. Maybe sometime in the future, you will meet someone who has returned to the past through your divine art, and proved to the world that their opinion of you is wrong. Her expression was entranced, and she looked at Zhu Qiu, who was still searching for them with a dazed look. Does this world really have a divine art that allows a substance to not change, not move, not transform, not increase, and not decrease? Is it created by me? The waves in her heart became incomparably strong confidence, and created a belief for her to continue her research. I will create it. In the future, Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin will come back in time through my divine art and encourage me. I can definitely do it. She swept the setback she had received from Celestial Venerable Yu's death, and picked up her spirits once again. Qin Mu and Founding Emperor had researched for a very long time with her, and they had used their knowledge to help her pave the first step. What she had to do was continue to pave new steps, until she finally succeeded in creating an ultimate technique that would astonish the world. She bade farewell to South Deity Zhu Qiu, and walked towards the Jade Pool. She met Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun on the way, and greeted them. Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun gave off looks of surprise, as Celestial Venerable Ling was a girl with a strange temper in their memory. She would never greet anyone. If other people greeted her, and she didn't like that person, she wouldn't reply at all. And now she was actually taking the initiative to greet them. The sun had truly risen from the west. Celestial Venerable Ling, please don't leave in a hurry. Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly stopped her, and Celestial Venerable Ling stopped in her footsteps to turn around. Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun looked at each other in the eyes, and both of them came to her side. They said with a low voice, "Many things have happened in the Jade Pool meeting and Celestial Venerable Yu died. Celestial Venerable Hao got severely injured by Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Emperor, has ordered Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin to be arrested. However, there are too many things here." Celestial Venerable Ling listened quietly. Celestial Venerable Yu mustered her courage and suppressed her voice. "We can see that it was Celestial Venerable Hao that killed Celestial Venerable Yu, and that Celestial Venerable Mu took revenge for Celestial Venerable Yu. The rumors going around these few days aren't just empty talk. Celestial Emperor and Celestial Empress, they are all involved. The conflict between half-gods and the races has already begun. As the leader of the races, we have to be on guard. Celestial Venerable Yun on the side said, Celestial Venerable Mu has imparted Celestial Venerable Yu's method to become a god, and the races rising to power would only be a matter of time. Both of us have discussed this, and we feel that there are many dangers lying ahead of us. Thus, we can't be scattered anymore. We need to form an alliance for the human race, to plan for the future of the other races. Celestial Venerable Ling's heart stirred slightly. Heaven Alliance. Both of them were astonished, and they hurriedly asked, Celestial Venerable Ling, you also have this plan? Do you also plan to establish an alliance? Heaven Alliance, did you come up with this name? Celestial Venerable Ling shook his head. Celestial Venerable Mu came up with this name, and Celestial Venerable Qin is also in the Heaven Alliance. I'm planning to find Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Hua this time, and pull them into the Heaven Alliance. Celestial Venerable Yun hurriedly said, Celestial Venerable Yu is still okay, but Celestial Venerable Hua has a bad temper, and his mouth has no zipper. Furthermore, he is also close to Celestial Venerable Hao, so he's not suitable to join the Heaven Alliance. Where's Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu? Celestial Venerable Yu asked. Celestial Venerable Ling revealed a smile, and she said leisurely, they are waiting for us in the future, waiting for the day we will reunite. Let's go find Celestial Venerable Yu. The three of them walked towards the Jade Pool small construction, and Celestial Venerable Yun pondered for a moment before saying, we need to have rules and regulations. Heaven Alliance must think about the safety of the races, and only let people with outstanding aptitudes join us. We also need to test their character, and prevent trouble from within. Celestial Venerable Yu said, the rules and regulations must be set, we can't be too good to bad guys, and we can't be too bad to good guys. We can only be better to good guys and worse to bad guys. Only then can Heaven Alliance last long. Celestial Venerable Ling said, what is the goal of Heaven Alliance? We need to establish that as well. Let us first find Celestial Venerable Yu. This era, the Golden Age, there are already signs of chaos, we need to be ready. When the darkness shrouded them, what Founding Emperor saw was different from what Celestial Venerable Ling and South Deity Zhu Q saw. He could still see himself standing in his original spot. What was changing was the substances around him. Celestial Venerable Ling and South Deity Zhu Q scattered like black sand in the wind. The vast and majestic celestial heavens were also scattering like a sand painting. The substance retreated, and it wasn't time that was moving forward. Celestial Venerable Ling was right. Sunlight scattered down, and all the darkness vanished. Where he was standing was no longer the celestial heavens of the ancient times. Instead, it was a piece of desolate desert, and the surging river was flowing not far away. This place was the Great Ruins, the ruins of the High Emperor era. The Great Ruins was filled with strange incidents, and the people that were lucky enough to survive the High Emperor era lived in the Great Ruins. There were also some people that lived in the outside world, surviving with difficulty. Founding Emperor looked at this sight with a dazed look, and he walked towards the surging river. He thought to himself, Celestial Venerable Mu, we will meet again, right? That's right. I want to make a divine sword like that. Far away, numerous divine arts practitioners were searching the shores of the surging river, and when someone saw Founding Emperor from far away, he cried out in delight, Qin Yi is over there. Everyone hurriedly came to welcome him, and in the front was an old bull. He was covered in green scales, and on the bull's back was a young farmer. He was strong and robust, but he wasn't tall. Behind him was a girl with a folded fan, and also a fisherman with two small red cuns in the basket behind him, popping their heads out. All the way at the back was a woodcutter. They ran towards Founding Emperor, and the young woodcutter was running the slowest. He panted heavily, "Wait for me, guys, wait for me. Qin Yi, where have you been? You sure made us spend quite a great deal of effort to find you." The farmer jumped down from the old bull's back and gave him a punch. Founding Emperor stumbled from the punch and cried out in pain. The farmer hurriedly said, "Stop acting, we have fought many times in the past, and it was only you who beat me up until I cry in pain. You have vanished for many days and fishermen tracked you here." Afterward, he couldn't find any more clues. Founding Emperor revealed a smile and said, "I mistakenly entered an inconceivable place and encountered numerous inconceivable things." Everyone circled around him and asked curiously, "What exactly is it?" Founding Emperor spaced out and suddenly shook his head. "I better not say." The old bull beside the farmer spoke. "Benefactor, now you aren't being straightforward. What can you not tell us?" Founding Emperor heard this voice, and his mind was suddenly blown. He only came back to his senses after a while, and had a ridiculous feeling when he looked at the old bull. He was even more determined not to reveal what he had encountered. Time slipped away. More and more people followed Founding Emperor, and many people became renowned in the world like Dieyue, Qian Shu, Sakura, and they all followed him. On this day, Founding Emperor Empire was established, and it was built on the ruins of the High Emperor era. They formed a god dynasty, and was crowned as Founding Emperor. After the ascension ceremony, Founding Emperor was also a little tired. He got everyone to fall back, while he came to the imperial study to read through his memorials. Right at this moment, the door to the imperial study opened up, and a woman in green walked in. Founding Emperor raised his head, and his body trembled violently when he saw this woman in green. Celestial Venerable Qin. That woman revealed a smile. "Long time no see. I've waited for you, I've waited so painstakingly." Founding Emperor got up, and tears flowed out from his eyes. Celestial Venerable Ling. Celestial Venerable Qin, Founding Elder of the Heaven Alliance, welcome back to the Heaven Alliance. What Qin Mu and the old bull saw was quite similar to Founding Emperor. Qin Mu saw the substances flowing away like black sand for the second time, but it was still the first time for Nyo Sanduo, so he couldn't help clicking his tongue in wonder. The darkness faded, and Qin Mu examined the surroundings. He saw that they were still in the west of Supreme Emperor Heaven, and the broken cliff was about 100 miles in front of them. The ancient god's celestial heavens from back then has already ceased to exist, and only the great ruins is left. The ancient god's celestial heavens should be buried deep underground in the great ruins, right? He looked at the land under his feet, and his heart was feeling depressed as he recalled the past. From the ancient god's celestial heavens in the ancient times, from Dragon Han era to now, exactly how many years have passed? In this long and drawn-out history, how many talents with outstanding aptitudes were buried here? They were like the stars in the sky in history, twinkling in the darkness, and fading away like the substances flowing. Tingling. Carefree sword floated around Qin Mu and danced up and down. This sword had also returned to the present with him, and it was currently singing happily. It was as if it had woken up from the dead and revived. Carefree sword didn't follow Founding Emperor. It belonged to Qin Mu's era, so it wouldn't leave with Founding Emperor. Qin Mu caressed the sword gently, and Carefree sword slowly moved under his fingertips. He could feel the energy hidden in the spirit of the sword. This sword of Founding Emperor came alive. "Senior Brother Sanduo, let us go." Qin Mu raised his hand, and Carefree sword gave a light sword cry which complemented his sword pellet. Qin Mu looked into the distance, and called Nyo Sanduo, who was still in a daze. He said with a smile, "Let us go Fengju. Sister Dieyue and Heavenly King Qian Shu should have already gone there and reconstructed Fengju. I might even enter Yudu from Fengju, and meet that old friend with a devil face on the back of his head. The old bull came back to his senses and said in a daze, this period of time was like a dream. I really don't know if what I encountered was an illusion, or if I've really returned to the past. Junior brother, after we left, what do you think happened in Dragon Han? Did Celestial Venerable Ling establish the third pole, the third celestial heavens? The three heavens of Dragon Han, who won? I don't know. I would like to know as well, what exactly happened after we left. Qin Mu moved forward with him and said, however, traveling back in time isn't something we can control. I feel that we are closer to unveiling the truth and unveiling this part of history. Senior brother, you can return your yellow joss paper to me now. The old bull hurriedly took down the yellow joss paper, and returned the yellow joss paper to him. He had a weird expression as he said, I've beaten up Founding Emperor, wreaked havoc in the celestial heavens, beaten the woman of Celestial Emperor, beat up all kinds of ancient gods, and even an inescapable net couldn't capture me. I even met South Deity Zhu Q before, and met the most ancient celestial venerables of the human race. Old Master won't even believe me if I tell him. He, I can totally scare Old Master to death. My golden commander's seal is still here. He took down the commander's seal on his waist and shone it in the sunlight. He examined it closely and said with a smile, never did I expect that I, Nyo Sanduo, would take up an official position in the ancient god's celestial heavens. Since this commander's seal is still around, this means that this isn't a dream, it truly happened. When Old Master sees this commander's seal, he will definitely pee in his pants. Qin Mu looked at that commander's seal under the sunlight, and his expression changed slightly. He took out that incomparably ancient commander's seal from Founding Master Wei Suifeng. When two commanders' seals were under the sunlight, one looked very new, and one looked very old. When light flowed through that new commander's seal, it actually managed to activate that old commander's seal as well. Numerous ancient writings and runes gradually appeared. The old marks on the commander's seal that Founding Master had left behind gradually faded away. The seal slowly became sparkling and translucent, as though it was brand new and just forged. Qin Mu examined the writings and runes with a weird expression. They were indeed writings from the Dragon Han era, and there were only slight differences between the words on the golden commander's seal from the old bull and the words on the commander's seal. Qin Mu returned to the first year of Dragon Han, and he also had contact with the writings of that era. Even though there were differences with the writings of the future, he could still recognize most of them. The writings on the commander's seal belonged to the seal script of the god writings. It was a category of bird characters. The writings contained the marvel of the world, and there were still sects cultivating the rune path using bird characters. However, when compared to true god writings, there were still some differences. After all, it had been too long since the first year of Dragon Han, and so the god writings then had already been long lost. These two commanders' seals weren't one. Golden Commander was a general that guarded the jade capital of the celestial heavens. Two words were carved with yang on the commander's seal, and they were Golden Commander. On the other hand, this commander's seal was carved using yin and wrote two words, Feathered Forest. Celestial Heavens Feathered Forest Guards. Qin Mu blinked his eyes. The Feathered Forest Guards of which celestial heavens? There were 3 celestial heavens in the Dragon Han era, and every celestial heaven had their own feathered forest guards. Just by looking at the commander's seal that Founding Master had left behind, it was hard to determine which celestial heaven it was from. The runes in the commander's seal were a kind of command skill to command the gods. Command skill was a kind of formation skill that was extremely profound. People who were still skilled in order skills today were extremely few. The reform in Eternal Peace this time, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, also didn't have any knowledge in command skills. Luckily, there was Blind, the formation expert, and he sorted out a series of command skills for the army of the Eternal Peace Empire. Why did Big Senior Brother want to leave behind this commander's seal? Where did he get it from? There must be a deep reason why. Maybe this is the commander's seal from the extraterritorial celestial heavens. As long as I know which celestial heavens it is from, I will know the true face of the extraterritorial celestial heavens. A thought suddenly sprung in Qin Mu's head. Could Big Senior Brother also have gone back into the Dragon Han era? He then shook his head. The commander's seal was very ancient. If Big Senior Brother had traveled back to the Dragon Han era and brought back the commander's seal of Feathered Forest, this seal would be brand new like the old bull's. The commander's seal had become brand new now, because the old bull's commander's seal activated the command skill within, thus erasing the marks of time. However, the original commander's seal had to go through long years to become what it had looked like. Unless he traveled back to the Dragon Han era and never returned. Qin Mu had a strange feeling in his heart, but he quickly rejected that idea. That deduction was too ridiculous. If Founding Master never came back, didn't that mean he was located in some place that was forever day or forever night? How could such a place exist? There might really be a few. His expression became strange. Xuanju is always day, and the ancient god's celestial heavens is always in the day too. Yudu is always night, so there's no change in day and night. If Big Senior Brother remains in Yudu, Xuanju, or the celestial heavens, he can keep remaining in the past. Why have I thought until here? Big Senior Brother wouldn't remain in the past. He burst out into laughter and put away the Feathered Forest commander's seal. He walked towards the broken cliff with the old bull and thought to himself, the command skill in this rune is used to command the Feathered Forest guards. However, I don't know which celestial heavens these Feathered Forest guards are from. Maybe that celestial heavens is already wiped out and has ceased to exist. The commander's seal might have no use, but I can hand the command skill to Grandpa Blind, he can research it. The old bull avoided the surging river that was under the cliff. He seemed to be very afraid of the surging river. Senior Brother Sanduo, martial arts heavenly teacher, only wanted you to send me to Heavenly Yin World, and Heavenly Yin World is right under the cliff. Qin Mu said with a smile, you can go back now, no need to send me any further. I shall go to Heavenly Yin World to take a look first, and see if Sister Dieu has made a decision already. The old bull hesitated for a while and shook his head. I don't really want to go back. Old Master is a very boring person, he only knows how to train every day, and I can only smoke and drink tea. When I get really bored, I will rake the land. I feel it's still better to follow you. As long as you don't create any trouble, it's much more interesting than being beside Old Master. Qin Mu said with a smile, if martial arts heavenly teacher knows I kidnapped you, won't he punch me to death? The old bull laughed loudly and stood up. He crossed his hooves. He dares. The golden commander of the ancient celestial heavens in here, does he dare to behave atrociously? Both of them laughed loudly. Qin Mu walked into the Heavenly Yin World with him, and Nyo Sanduo said with a smile, we met Goddess of Heavenly Yin in Dragon Han's celestial heavens. She had remarkable abilities. I wonder if Goddess of Heavenly Yin still remembers us. They came to the Heavenly Yin World only to see numerous scholars from Eternal Peace constructing pavilions and buildings, as though they were planning to stay here permanently. There were even some scholars practicing divine arts of the Heavenly Yin World, but Goddess of Heavenly Yin wasn't here. Qin Mu was bewildered and asked around. One scholar replied, Cult Master, Goddess has gone to pay a visit to her old friend, she has been gone for a few days. Has Heavenly King Tian Shu and Heavenly King Di come by? I've not seen them. Qin Mu could only leave Heavenly Yin World, muttering to himself. goddess of heavenly yin, has gone to pay a visit to an old friend. She died in the Dragon Han era, so her old friend is most likely an ancient god. I wonder which ancient god she is paying a visit to. Neo Sanduo lifted him up and ran all the way. Soon, they reached the opposite of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Qin Mu turned back to look and saw 6 to 7 huge sun ships and moon ships on Supreme Emperor Heaven. They were currently walking in the sky. And in Luofu Heaven, there were also sun ship and moon ship shining there and lighting up Luofu Heaven, allowing all things to grow. Right at this moment, there were actually several cities on both Supreme Emperor Heaven and Luofu Heaven. It must have been true god Pang Yu and Fu Riluo, who had brought the remaining survivors to reconstruct their homes. Imperial Preceptor's speed sure is fast. Qin Mu was full of praises. They came to board a dragon city around the late afternoon. There were divine arts practitioners harvesting rice. Neo Sanduo felt an itch when he saw it and ran to plow several fields of land. Qin Mu called out several times before the old bull reluctantly left the fields. He said with a smile, "I finally got my craving satisfied. I've been holding it back these days." They walked into the city and entered Fengju through between life and death. They could only hear constant loud trembling sounds, and Qin Mu stood on the bridge to look over. He saw the entire Fengju shaking non-stop, and the land in the darkness was expanding continuously. Pieces of heaven and earth were being opened up one after another. Dieu, Heavenly King Tian Shu, and King Yama executed their abilities to expand the land of Fengju. Devil flames keep pouring out from the ground and connected with the river of helplessness. The ground trembled, and huge mountains rose from the land. The space of Fengju was expanding rapidly. Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open, and didn't understand what he was seeing. Fengju is the horn of earth count. It's a world and also a treasure. The old bull was more knowledgeable, and he knew the reason. If the horn of earth count is refined into a treasure, it would have strangely huge power, and it would be an exceptional weapon. Back then, Old Master planned to pluck off a horn from earth count to make a knife, yet after he went Yudu, he got beaten back by benevolent saintly king equal to heaven. Benevolent saintly king equal to heaven kept chasing him, but luckily, I ran very fast and carried him to Xuanju, only then was Old Master's life saved. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Martial arts heavenly teacher still had such a past that couldn't be recollected. The other ability of Earth Count's horn is to transform into a vast world. The old bull continued to say, King Yama is a junior after all, he doesn't know the true power of Earth Count's horn. That original Fengju is too small. If it could be unraveled completely, it is even larger than Supreme Emperor Heaven and Luofu Heaven. Dieu, Heavenly King Tian Shu, and King Yama transformed into majestic gods that walked in the darkness. They struck out mudras everywhere, and space was still expanding continuously. The land moved and the mountains shook. It was truly astonishing. Qin Mu even felt that there was a rule that was becoming stronger and stronger. That was the rule of Yudu, and even though Fengju was just a tiny piece of Earth Count's horn, the Yudu rule contained inside was incomparably astonishing. In the past, the living realm of the dead couldn't suppress true gods and experts on the Jade Pool realm. Now, even gods on the Jade Pool realm would be suppressed and turned into skeletons. He observed in detail, and the mudra skill that these three people were executing was from Yudu. Among them, Heavenly King Tian Shu was still the most skillful, and he was no doubt the one who was conferred the title of Mingju Heavenly King by Earth Count. His attainments in Yudu were indeed profound and unpredictable. Heavenly King Tian Shu carried Imperial Gate Divine Knife, as he raised his hands and kicked his legs while radiating with aggressiveness. Tian Shu is drunk. Qin Mu took a look and said very confidently. If he isn't drunk, he wouldn't have such aggressiveness. Dieyue and King Yama were a little out of practice when they executed the mudra skills, so it was obvious that Qin Mu had just imparted them the mudra skills. They had learned it not long ago, so they couldn't execute it as they wished. King Yama is skilled in the paths, skills, and divine arts after all, so it's natural that he can learn Heavenly King Qin Mu's mudra skill. However, why was Sister Dieyue able to learn it as well? Qin Mu was bewildered and asked, "Senior brother Sanjuo, why is Sister Dieyue able to execute all kinds of divine arts? Is she an overlord body as well?" The old bull shook his head. "What kind of overlord body is she? The number one Heavenly King has a special spirit body, it's the body of paradise that has no attributes at all. Rumors say that the body of paradise is the spirit body that has the bloodline of Heaven Duke, thus no matter what technique they learn, they can easily master it. Back then, Founding Emperor was full of anticipation for her and spent a great deal of effort to make the four deities take her in as their disciple. The body of paradise that possesses the bloodline of Heaven Duke." Qin Mu was bewildered and immediately took off the willow leaf on the heart of his brows. His undying God consciousness rushed into the Qin word land and asked, "Heaven Duke, do you know about the body of paradise?" The old man with white brows and white beard instantly became alarmed. "Qin boy, what do you know?" Qin Mu hurriedly pulled back his undying God consciousness and pasted the willow leaf back on the heart of his brows. He smiled and said, "It's said that Heaven Duke is impartial like Earth Count, but it seems that he also has past events that can't be looked back upon. Other than the body of paradise, there's also the body of Netherworld." The old bull continued to say, "This body of Netherworld would be related to Earth Count. Rumors say it has the bloodline of Earth Count. These two bloodlines are both extremely rare. The number one Heavenly King is the body of paradise, and Founding Emperor planned to find a body of Netherworld, but he could never find it." Qin Mu cried out, "Earth Count. Earth Count also has such a past." The old bull shook his head and said, "As for the exact situation, I don't know. I just heard of such a spirit body." Qin Mu composed himself and felt something crumbling in his heart. Suddenly, the darkness in the river of helplessness under the bridge churned, and a beautiful face gradually appeared. She looked at Qin Mu, who was on the bridge. Qin Mu looked down the bridge, and saw the long snake tail of that beautiful woman. She was swaying her tail in the darkness and the flames. Qin Mu's heart jumped, and he was at ease in the next instant. He said with a smile, "Lu Li. Qin Fengqing." That beauty also revealed a smile. "You are looking for my brother." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Wait a minute, let me call my brother out to meet you." Part 290. "Brother, someone has come to visit a prisoner, she's here to bring food to you." Qin Mu took off the willow leaf on the heart of his brows, and saw the huge baby that was being suppressed in the center of the Qin word land. "It's a babe, she's pretty, has a snake's tail, and also has the voice of a man. I'm never picky about food." That baby raised his head, and was extremely delighted. He suddenly asked suspiciously, "Are you lying to me? If you lie to me, I'll beat you to death before eating you. If you never lie to me, I'll eat you when you are alive." Before Qin Mu could even speak, Lu Li's rough voice came from the river of helplessness. She chuckled and said, "Qin Fengqing, I've not come for you this time, I'll let you off this time. The future is long, you will fall into my hands one day." She clearly had the body of a woman, but she had the rough voice of a man. It was very strange. Lu Li's tail slithered, and she swam towards the front of the river of helplessness. In Qin word land, that baby was furious. "Bad brother, you are indeed lying to me. Come in, look at how I beat you to death. I'll tear off your head and legs before I eat you." On the side, the clone of Heaven Duke and the consciousness of Crimson Emperor had already hidden in the mountains of Qin word land. They were afraid of the baby taking out his anger on them. Qin Mu stuck the willow leaf back and said with a smile, "Why is Lu Li so understanding this time?" As he was saying that, huge bodies swam under the water of the river of helplessness. They quickly passed by the bridge of helplessness. Qin Mu's expression was blank. Those were countless Yudu monsters and Yudu devil gods. The Yudu devil gods with Lu Li in the lead brought countless monsters over, and they were currently traveling through the river of helplessness. Those slippery and dark bodies under the river surface were incomparably huge, yet they were as agile as fishes in the river water where fire and water were compatible with each other. The number of monsters made their scalps crawled. The 4 great provincial governors that were stationed in Yudu by the celestial heavens are here. The old bull looked down the bridge and said, "Opening up Fengju this time is trying to turn Fengju into another Mingju. As long as it's constructed, Fengju could be as vast as Mingju. I reckon not only Lu Li, Xian Ming, Han Lei, and Zhu Huang will be making a move, but even Son of Heaven Yin won't be able to sit still." He punched towards the river of helplessness, but he could only cause water and fire to spew out. He couldn't hurt those devil gods and monsters under the water at all. This was because the river of helplessness was the boundary line that connected Yudu and Fengju. Even though those monsters looked like they were swimming under the water, they were actually swimming in Yudu. Even though Niu Sanduo was a great master of the numinous sky realm on the martial path, and his fist skill was overbearing and fierce, he still couldn't break through worlds to attack those monsters and devil gods. He only knew the divine arts of the martial path, so he wasn't too knowledgeable about the divine arts of Yudu. Son of Heaven Yin will also make a move. Qin Mu asked in doubt, "Sister Dieu is right here, would he dare to show himself?" Qin Mu had also heard about the love and hate between Dieu and Son of Heaven Yin. First ancestor human emperor had secretly told him about their affairs. Back then, Son of Heaven Yin chased after Dieu's heart, and yet he killed her ruthlessly on their nuptial night. After killing Dieu, he then suppressed her corpse at the bottommost level of the underworld prison. Now that Dieu was opening up Fengju, would Son of Heaven Yin still dare to appear? If he dares to appear, I would be impressed by the thickness of his face. As Qin Mu thought until here, the space of Fengju trembled non-stop. The sky split open, and Son of Heaven Yin's face appeared from the crack in the sky. 2 of his huge eyeballs rolled around as he surveyed the surroundings. Qin Mu was astonished. The old bull said, "You have underestimated the thickness of his face." With Son of Heaven Yin's appearance, these devil gods and monsters of Yudu could probably start to launch their attacks on Fengju. Before he could finish speaking, that Son of Heaven Yin in the sky opened his mouth and started chanting profound and cryptic Yudu language. Yudu devil chi gathered and formed a vertical eye on the heart of his brows. The vertical eye opened up, and a beam of black light descended from the sky. It slashed on the river of helplessness, and the river was parted to both sides. From the river surface that had cracked open, devil gods leaped out and roared loudly. Son of Heaven Yin's gaze fell from the sky and sliced down. The gaze quickly reached the bridge of between life and death. Niu Sanduo gave an angry roar, and his body swelled up drastically. He transformed into an indomitable bull-headed god, and shattered Son of Heaven Yin's gaze with a punch. Qin Mu looked towards the river of helplessness, and saw countless monsters crawling out like ants from their nest. They crawled out from Yudu, and entered Fengju from the crack. So it's the old farmer's mount, that old bull. Son of Heaven Yin immediately noticed the bridge, and said with a smile, "It would be much better, if it's your master that had come." "He, Qin Fengqing is also here, your corporeal body is mine." Right at this moment, a beam of knife light rushed into the sky. It was Tian Shu brandishing his knife and slashing at Son of Heaven Yin. Son of Heaven Yin sneered and let Tian Shu's knife slash at his face freely. When this face was sliced open, the face in the sky would vanish. Another face would then appear, and it was also Son of Heaven Yin's face. Tian Shu was about slash again, when more and more faces appeared in the dark sky above Fengdu. There were almost 100 handsome faces that had appeared in an instant, blocking out the entire dark sky of Fengdu. The hundreds of faces in the sky opened their mouths in unison, and arms actually stretched out from those mouths. Several hundred arms came grabbing down. Tian Shu used the Imperial Gate Divine Knife to defend and chopped off huge hand after huge hand. However, more and more hands came grabbing down. Neo Sanduo stood on the bridge, and his fist skills were fierce and powerful. He managed to force back the huge hands that came grabbing, but there were simply too many hands in the sky. He found it difficult to defend against them. At the same time, the 4 great provincial governors of Yudu also crossed the river of helplessness. They reorganized the tens of thousands of devil gods, and led countless monsters to attack the Fengdu's gods in the city. In Fengdu God City, the roars of the gods deafened the sky as they welcomed the fight. Everyone on both sides of the river of helplessness instantly sank into a terrifying battle. Suddenly, King Yama, who was currently opening up Fengdu, came flying over. Unraveling his cape, the vast god city was instantly shrouded under his cape. When King Yama lifted up his cape again, only skeletons were left on both sides of the river of helplessness. Countless monsters and devil gods were turned into white bones by him. The son picked up by founding Emperor sure has some abilities. However, your Yudu divine art isn't cultivated to perfection. In the sky, huge hands grabbed down and caught King Yama's cape. They lifted King Yama up, and he was astonished. He gave a roar and pulled out his sword to slash those huge hands. Lu Li, Zhu Huang, Xian Ming, Han Lei, and the 4 great provincial governors of Yudu took the chance to rush into the city to massacre. Most of the gods in Fengdu were just primordial spirit, and even though they had recovered their corporeal bodies in the living realm of the dead, they still couldn't defend against these 4 great provincial governors. Many people got their souls shattered. Suddenly, a gate flew over and landed in the center of heaven and earth. Mingdu Heavenly Gate. Lu Li and the rest of the gods cried out. The power of the Mingdu Heavenly Gate suppressed downwards, and everyone's primordial spirits sank to the ground. They got pressed down and couldn't move. Dieu floated up and stood barefoot on the Mingdu Heavenly Gate. She raised her head and had a smile that was yet not a smile on her face. Husband, why didn't you come with your true body? Why have you only projected yourself with your divine art? I would like to hear your sweet talk again. In the dark sky above, Son of Heaven Yin's faces were twitching non-stop. Suddenly, all of the faces gathered together and transformed into one. This face was also slowly fading away and vanishing. Dieu, I have indeed let you down, therefore, I won't fight with you, it's not because I'm afraid of you. His voice moved further and further away. However, my mission is accomplished. The reason why I sliced open Fengdu isn't because I want to stop you personally. I am just allowing the power of Yudu to come in. Mingdu Heavenly King, you will have to settle your grudge with Earth Count for severing his horn to construct Fengdu. Now, I can retreat after my success. Dieu's heart jumped, and she hurriedly looked towards the river of helplessness. The river of helplessness was deadly silent. The monsters and devil gods pouring out from the river stopped fighting and were motionless. The 4 great provincial governors were guarding in front of the Yudu devil gods' army and waiting. From the river of helplessness, a paper boat floated out, and the paper boat was like a pillar of light that lit up Fengdu. On the bow of the ship, an elder whose face couldn't be seen clearly raised his hand to take down the lantern. He had no expression on his face. Next, more paper boats floated out one after another. Countless paper boats flew out from the river of helplessness, and on every paper boat was an elder whose face couldn't be seen clearly. They all had a lantern that could tear through the darkness. Countless paper boats floated into the sky, and the light from the lanterns was shining in all directions. The sky trembled, warped, and shrunk. The ground was also rumbling and shrinking continuously. Mountains in the darkness were shrinking back into the land, and they turned back into flat ground. The space that Dieu, Heavenly King Qin Mu, and King Yama had worked together to open up was smacked back to its original form by Elder Messenger of Death in an instant. Sand border celestial palace. King Yama bellowed, and the ground trembled non-stop. God cities appeared in the darkness, and the pitch-black city walls looked as though they were forged by black iron. They stood tall in the depths of Fengdu, and that was Sand Border Celestial Palace, one of the 36 celestial palaces of Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens. Heroes of Founding Emperor that died in battle. King Yama stared at the paper boats that filled the sky and raised his sword high up. Skeletons of Founding Emperor that died in battle. I beg you, fight for Founding Emperor once more. Rumble, rumble. Terrifying rumbles came from the black iron-forged god cities, and from the cities, huge skeletons slowly stood up and grabbed their worn-out weapons, standing there silently. Ghostly blue flames burned in their eye sockets. Those were the gods that had died in the battle when the Founding Emperor era was eradicated. Their bones were all buried in Fengdu, and now that they had heard King Yama's call, they had woken up from death. Suddenly, the gates of a black iron god city opened up, and a strange three-headed beast came sprinting out. It carried a skeleton god to ran forward, and the clacking of its hooves was really fast. That skeleton god was still carrying a tattered flag, and the flag unfurled in the wind. The word Yu could still be seen. On the Mingju Heavenly Gate, Dieu looked at that Yu-word flag in a daze and tears suddenly flowed out from her eyes. That was her flag. As the number one Heavenly King, she also possessed her own god army. However, before the disasters happened, she left to marry Son of Heaven Yin. Now, she had seen her own flag again, but her subordinates had all become skeletons. Even though they had become skeletons, they still carried her military flag. The skeleton god rushed over, and the strange beast under him suddenly stopped. With a heavy slam, that god stabbed the flag under Mingju Heavenly Gate, and raised his head in pride. Behind him, countless skeleton gods came clattering over, and they stopped behind him in a neat formation. The gates of the black iron god cities opened up, and more skeleton gods came pouring out. They lined up in their formations and stood across from the paper boats in the sky silently. The elders on the paper boats shook their sleeves, and countless paper humans and paper horses flew out from their sleeves, transforming into countless gods. Both sides didn't make a sound and just stood on the spot silently. Severing the horn of earth count comes with a price. On one of the paper boats, Elder Messenger of Death raised his lantern and said calmly, "The rules of Yudu can't be broken. If you return Fengdu today, no lives will be harmed. If you don't, not even a blade of grass will survive." Dieu and the rest felt apprehensive. Qin Mu carried his wine jar and drowned himself with wine furiously. He shouted, "Official sovereign, I was the one who severed Earth Count's horn. If you have the guts, just find trouble with me." "You are drunk again." That elder on the paper took a glance at him and said indifferently, "Don't try to defend. Over millions of years, countless worlds have been destroyed trying to fight against me. As long as Yudu's rules are touched, there will be no innocent." Dieu sneered and said, "Mingju is also the horn of Earth Count. Why doesn't official sovereign go wipe out Mingju? Why have you come to bully us instead? Yudu's rules are bullshit. Whoever is stronger than you guys can just play around with your bullshit rules as they like." Elder Messenger of Death frowned and stopped speaking. The light from the lanterns was still shining, and Fengdu was about to be smacked back into its original form. King Yama gritted his teeth and gripped his sword tightly. He said solemnly, "Prepare to fight to the death." Elder Messenger of Death sighed. Stubborn. Suddenly, on the bridge of between life and death, Qin Mu carved a mask and threw it down to a paper boat below the bridge. Elder Messenger of Death lowered his head to look at the mask. That was a familiar devil mask that had 2 streaks of tears. Elder Messenger of Death looked up the bridge, and Qin Mu said softly, "I understand now, I'm back." Elder Messenger of Death's body trembled violently, and the paper boats that filled the sky suddenly collided with one another. Countless Elder Messenger of Death merged together and transformed into one person. He bent over and picked up that mask. This elder gazed at the mask for a moment before wearing it on the back of his head. Mu. He raised his head to look at the youth. "You are back. Do you know how many years have passed?" "How many years?" Qin Mu didn't understand this too much either. The Crimson Light era had been eradicated 350,000 years ago, and it had only existed for 100,000 years. So the Dragon Han era had ended 450,000 years ago. How long did the Dragon Han era last? There was no way for him to calculate that. The endless time, to disregard every day and every month. Did that shut-off youth wearing the mask just wait in Yudu all this time for Qin Mu's arrival? Was he always there keeping watch beside Celestial Venerable Yu's coffin? Qin Mu couldn't imagine that Celestial Venerable Yu, who was so bored that he threw divine arts to bomb fish on the floating bridge in the Jade Pool, that youth who would curl up and twitch uncontrollably whenever he was sad and blamed himself, would stay in the dark Yudu and wait all that time, because of a promise. Back then, he was still a youth with a sickly pale face, and now he was already an elder. Only him, who was shut off, would cultivate so many clones of himself, and spread himself throughout the worlds to guide the souls of the dead towards Yudu. Only a person that was shut off like him would talk to himself and be able to stay beside Earth Count, that solemn and serious ancient god, for hundreds of thousands, or even 1,000,000 years. All because of a promise. God knows how many years ago, Qin Mu didn't even personally make the promise with him, and instead, he got Celestial Venerable Ling to bring the promise to him. "I understand now, I'm back." For these words, he had gone to Yudu, and guarded Celestial Venerable Yu's coffin from a youth to an elder. He and Celestial Venerable Yu had no blood relations, and Celestial Venerable Yu had merely gone to visit him when his mother was gravely ill. Celestial Venerable Yu had merely treated him well and took great care of him. Just a little kindness was enough to let the shut off him offer his entire life. Qin Mu jumped down from the bridge and landed on the paper boat. The old bull saw this situation, and also hurriedly jumped down the bridge, only to land in the river of helplessness. That boat had already ferried Elder Messenger of Death and Qin Mu into Yudu. It didn't catch him. "Little rascal, have you forgotten me?" The old bull was jumping in fury and grumbled, "Back then, when I wreaked havoc in the celestial heavens. Lu Li, Zhu Huang, Xian Ming, and Han Lei, the 4 great provincial governors, looked at one another in dismay. Elder Messenger of Death had attacked Yudu earlier, and his influence was so huge and terrifying. Yet now, he had just sailed off with his small boat and left them here. If Son of Heaven Yin and Elder Messenger of Death didn't say they wanted to attack Fengdu, they would have never charged their way into Fengdu. It was exactly because Son of Heaven Yin had headed to Yudu, and used the Celestial Heaven's name to convince Earth Count. He promised to open up the world barrier of Fengdu personally, and only then did Earth Count get Elder Messenger of Death to settle the grudge once and for all. That was also the reason why Lu Li and the rest decided to attack Fengdu. And now, Son of Heaven Yin got scared off by Dieu, an Elder Messenger of Death received a mask and also ran away for some weird reason. With only them left behind to deal with the remaining survivors of the founding Emperor era, how were they supposed to fight this battle? The 4 provincial governors of Yudu looked one another in the eyes, and instantly made their decision, by rising into the sky before diving into the river of helplessness with a plop. When the other Yudu devil gods saw the situation, they hurriedly rushed towards the river of helplessness. King Yama raised his sword and said coldly, "Kill. Lock down the river of helplessness, and kill them to the last one." War cries instantly sounded out, and countless heads fell to the ground on both sides of the river of helplessness. The river of helplessness was dyed red by the flowing blood. Qin Mu, Dieu, and the rest were at a loss. However, they didn't have time to think much and joined the encirclement. Benevolent saintly king equal to heaven is such a fierce and terrifying individual. Why would he put down his grudges when he saw that mask? Dieu wiped out a bunch of Yudu devil gods and continued to think to herself, how did Brother Mu do it? What did that sentence mean again? Qin Mu thought to himself, official sovereign of Yudu has become savage by nature, and he is the most unreasonable person in Yudu. Many worlds have been destroyed under his hands. If I knew he would retreat after seeing a mask, I would have given him an entire basket of masks. In regards to this official sovereign, there were too many legends about him. Qin Mu and Dieu were both heavenly kings of the founding emperor era, so they naturally knew a lot of stories and rumors. According to the rumors, Earth Count wasn't the most terrifying being in Yudu, and instead, it was Yudu official sovereign, who was known as benevolent saintly king equal to heaven. There was already no way to know when this official sovereign had come to Yudu. Some people said he was originally an ordinary human, who got invited by Earth Count to become the official sovereign of Yudu. Some people said he was Earth Count's younger brother, and that he was a natural-born sacred god as well. Earth Count carried out the rules of Yudu strictly, and as long as the rules of Yudu weren't broken, he would rarely interfere with any matters regarding the world of the living. And even if one broke the rules of Yudu, as long as they escaped back to the world of the living, Earth Count wouldn't pursue the matter. He would just record it down and deal the punishment after death. Yet Yudu official sovereign would rarely be strict like Earth Count, and not interfere with the rules of the living world. In countless rumors, Yudu official sovereign was a fellow that possessed incomparably terrifying battle power. He was so strong that he wasn't human at all. With his billions of clones, he rode on his small boats to guide the souls in every world towards Yudu. If met with the obstruction from a close friend of the dead, a disaster would arise. In history, numerous worlds had exploded with astonishing news of being wiped out. That was because when Elder Messenger of Death went to collect the souls, he got stopped by the gods there. When the gods and Elder Messenger of Death fought, the result was also incomparably terrifying. The power of just one Elder Messenger of Death wasn't invincible, and many gods could defeat him. However, when billions of Elder Messenger of Death came, it was a world-ending disaster. This was also the reason why Heavenly King Qin Mu was trembling and afraid to move when he followed Qin Mu to Yudu. He chopped off the horn of Earth Count, and Earth Count had personally chased him. When he escaped back into the world of the living, Earth Count caught his corporeal body at that instant, but because he was already in the world of the living, Earth Count didn't kill him. If it were Yudu official sovereign, who had given chase, it would be a different situation. Yudu official sovereign would definitely kill him, no matter where he escaped to. After Yudu sovereign got rid of him, he would even take his soul in for interrogation. There will be no second outcome. Only Qin Mu isn't afraid of Yudu official sovereign. Why does this brat have such a big face? Heavenly King Qin Mu also had a weird expression. Back then, when they escaped from Imperial Gate Divine Knife, Elder Messenger of Death didn't have a pleasant face for him, but he was very courteous to Qin Mu, and they even chatted happily. It was also Qin Mu pleading in front of Earth Count that allowed them to break free from Yudu. Qin Mu didn't know how terrifying official sovereign was, as he had never seen the scary side of Yudu official sovereign. On the little boat, Elder Messenger of Death wore a mask on the back of his head. He hung the lantern on the bow of the boat, and suddenly, small boats began to split off from this boat to fly off in all directions. The elder sat down and took down his mask, examining it over and over again. After a moment, he wore it on the back of his head again. "I'm old." His face suddenly became clearer, and allowed Qin Mu to see his face clearly. Deep wrinkles filled his face. From his face, Qin Mu could no longer see those features of Celestial Venerable Yu. He could only see marks left behind by time. "Celestial Venerable Mu, long time no see. I'm already old, and I'm no longer suitable to wear this kind of mask. 1,000,000 years have passed, but you are still young." His old eyes flashed with a ripple in his spirit, but it quieted down again. Qin Mu bowed and said, "Thank you for taking care of me all this while." Elder Messenger of Death shook his head and said, "I didn't recognize you until the willow leaf seal appeared on the heart of your brows. Only then did I think it could be you. Afterward, when Heaven Duke's seal appeared, I could only confirm. However, I couldn't interfere with your life, as if I did, you might not be you anymore." Qin Mu nodded. Even though his words were hard to understand, Qin Mu still understood. "Celestial Venerable Mu, let us go meet Celestial Venerable Yu." After he met with Qin Mu, the familiarity from the past was gone. Instead, he had become that weird Celestial Venerable Yu from the past again. He had a calm expression as he said, "For this day, I have waited 1,000,000 years." Qin Mu stayed silent. 1,000,000 years to fulfill a promise. Who could do it? He did it. From a person who was admired by all, from Celestial Venerable Yu, a greenhorn youth that had boundless prospects, into unsmiling Elder Messenger of Death, who everyone was afraid of. Too many things had happened during the past 1,000,000 years, and he had no one he could complain to. He could only complain to himself. Thus, Elder Messenger of Death increased in number. Every Messenger of Death carried his troubles, and every Messenger of Death couldn't open up his heart to others. Qin Mu looked at Earth Count, who was closing in. The majestic Earth Count was incomparably vast, and he stood upright in the darkness. The huge horns were immensely massive. He suddenly said, "You have gone this time to take back the horn of Earth Count. Now that you are returning empty-handed, how are you going to answer to him?" Elder Messenger of Death's face regained its calmness, and his face was indifferent. "I got stopped by someone and couldn't complete my mission. It will be on your head as usual." Qin Mu's face turned black, and he snorted. "I have a ton of things on my head anyway." Elder Messenger of Death nodded his head and said, "There are indeed tons." Qin Mu said again, "How did you become the Messenger of Death in Yudu, and how did you become the official sovereign of Yudu?" Elder Messenger of Death seemed to be saying something that didn't concern him. "After you left, I brought the coffin towards Yudu to meet Earth Count. Earth Count said it was okay for me to place Lan Yutian's corpse with him, but that I had to work for him, so I remained. Because if I remained here, not only could I protect my brother, I could also see my mother. In this way, I could feel that I'm alive." Qin Mu was stunned. The paper boat came to the Horn of Earth Count, and it sailed past worlds that were in destruction. Not long later, they finally arrived at the manor of benevolent saintly king equal to heaven. Earth Count is very nice. He is actually very similar to me, very shut off as well. Elder Messenger of Death rarely said a lot. However, I'm better than him. He only has me to talk to, but I have many of myself. I also have mother and brother, who is in the coffin, who would listen to me." Qin Mu stood up and jumped down from the boat. He stepped on solid land and said, "Today, Celestial Venerable, you will be able to come back to life." Elder Messenger of Death kept the paper boat and brought him into the manor. The first time Qin Mu came here, he was waiting in the hall for Earth Count's punishment, and this time, Elder Messenger of Death just brought him straight to his backyard. There was a middle-aged woman, and she had a sickly look on her face. She was currently lifting up a bucket of blue flames, which was water, with difficulty. She was watering the parameter flowers in the garden. The parameter flowers bloomed and were like stalks of gorgeous flames blooming in the garden. Mother. Elder Messenger of Death revealed a rare smile and walked forward. He helped the woman lift up her bucket and said, "Why aren't you resting? Just leave these menial tasks to me." The woman wiped her forehead and said with a smile, "I always feel like finding things to do." "Who is this little brother?" She looked at Qin Mu, and Qin Mu saw that this woman had no corporeal body. She was a frail soul, but that bucket of water probably had no weight at all, which was why she could lift it. "My friend," Elder Messenger of Death said with a smile, "he's here to visit older brother and us." The woman said in delight, "You don't have many friends, and no one ever comes to visit you to play. It's rare to have a friend, so let me cook up some dishes. You two can chat first. I will be done very soon." She hurriedly went off to start cooking. Qin Mu bowed. "Much thanks, Auntie." Elder Messenger of Death invited Qin Mu in to take a seat, and Qin Mu looked around. The house was poor and empty. He asked, "Why don't you catch some monster to take care of Auntie? Or let the primordial spirits of the dead come help as well? With your status, there will definitely be a lot of ghosts willing to help." Elder Messenger of Death shook his head. Mother doesn't like the monsters, and she doesn't like the dead either. Earth Count is very nice. After agreeing to his terms, he allowed us to reunite and live here. After a moment, the woman finished a few dishes and brought them up. However, the dishes were all emptiness. There was no taste. Qin Mu gave his thanks and invited the woman to sit down and eat. The woman shook her head with a smile. "I'll look at you two eat." Qin Mu sat down and started to eat with a delicious look. He kept praising her cooking. The woman was also very happy, and when they finished eating, she cleared the bowls and chopsticks to wash. "Much thanks," Elder Messenger of Death said. "I did what I was supposed to do," Qin Mu replied. "You are actually a very good person." Elder Messenger of Death got up and walked towards the back of the hall. "Brother is also here." Earth Count used his magic power to preserve his corporeal body as well. "Not long ago, I sensed the change in the great Tao of heaven and earth. Goddess of heavenly Yin was revived, and I knew this day wouldn't be far." Qin Mu followed him, and his heart trembled. He finally saw the coffin he had made with Buddha Vitality Crimson Chromium. Celestial Venerable Yu's heartbeat came from the coffin. This video will end here.